Hello, hello, everybody. And it's Wednesday again. And I can't believe how fast time goes. And we're already at the end of the month. And, coming to you from Canada, I'm actually quite glad because it's actually a very cold, windy day today. So I'm waiting for that spring to just appear. And that's my favorite time of year. And so today we have an incredible, awesome show. And I'm hoping that we get maybe some man folk there like they listen in on this because there's some great lessons to be learned and great information as well. Nicole, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's like you say, time just passes so quickly, and here we are at Wednesday again. And before you know it, we'll be sitting here again next week. But everything's good. Everything's good. I'm really excited about our guest today. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with this man who has become a friend of mine. And I want to read some initials here first. GTKW, and that stands for Get to Know Will. And we're going to have the opportunity to do that today. I have known him for, I'm going to say, just a couple of months now, but he's already made such a big impact on me in terms of his knowledge, his heartfelt leadership. And I think it's time that men get a front seat. Women, we always really kind of cater to women. Not that it's good, not that it's bad, but we need to hear another side of men, a softer side that shows emotions. And like we do, we get real. And Will, he's very good at that. He's very real. And I so appreciate that. He is the founder and president of Rising Men Alliance. Again, another one of my friends based in Canada. I don't know what's up with that, but you guys are everywhere. He has a nonprofit that aims to defend and promote the interests and rights of men, provide temporary accommodations, meeting basic needs, social reintegration, allow men to discuss their emotions. And that I believe to be one of the most important things, whether it's men or women, that we allow people to do in today's society. So with that, I would like to bring to the stage my friend Will Baptiste.
Welcome, welcome. I'm excited to hear this.
Wow, what a beautiful welcome. I feel like since we don't have president in Canada, we have prime minister. I feel like the next prime minister of Canada, the way that you introduced me, the way you graciously say those nice things about me. I'm still pinching myself to figure out whether it is real or not. But you know what? Plain words, let's get real. Well,
Let's
today,
let's get
yeah,
real.
absolutely. So today, that's what we're gonna do. We basically, literally, gonna be naked here, and we're just going to let it all out and inviting people to let them know that hey, here's a man just like us can actually get real, get be emotional, and be vulnerable about his past, his present, and where he's going. So I am excited beyond my wildest imagination to have two beautiful souls. And what makes it even more special, I just found out that Glenda is in Canada. So Canada, we're taking over. We're taking
Where
over.
are you in Canada?
Oh, mademoiselle, bonjour, bonjour. Moi, je suis à Montréal. I am in the beautiful province of Montreal, Quebec. Actually, Montreal was just voted the number one city in the world for his diversity and his inclusion. So I'm just very excited, and that's why I say, hey, I eat pain for breakfast.
Ooh, I love it. I love it. But I couldn't agree more with Nicole than to believe that it's time that, that we need to bring men and women together and create that kindness, that lovingness, that fact that, men should be able to share their emotions, talk it all out, and feel good about it, not to feel that they're less empowered because of that. So, how did you get into all this, Will?
Mm, great question. Do we have enough time? Because I feel like we're gonna be here all night.
Oh,
But I'm
well,
gonna
just keep on going.
listen. I'm gonna sum it up. I don't want to give it all the way because it will be in the book.
Ooh.
Actually, Will to Rise book is gonna come out at the end of the summer. How did I get? How did I arrive, or how did I get here? There's this phrase I find it very cool. It goes like this: I tap in because I was ready to tap out. What do I mean by tap in? That's when I realized, okay, all of those things that I've been through was for a time as such as this to finally waken up and realize that all of that was part of the ingredients to make me the beautiful cake that as I would use as an analogy. I came to my senses after years of abuse, molestation, incarceration, divorce. One of the thing that I find very special about me, if I could say that, is everything that I talk about. It's not from a third party. It's not from somebody that I know, somebody that I've gone through it. No, I actually lived through that. So today, that my mess can turn into my message. My test can turn to a testimony. And now my story is making a history. I got into this because I was looking for an alternative. Because what I was getting, if I kept doing what I was doing, I would keep getting what I've been gotten, which not what I wanted to keep getting. So at some point I had to say, okay, where do I go? Where do I turn? And I look around and there was nobody to turn to. And I had to become my own hero and realize that, hey, there's light at the end of the tunnel. Because one thing that I've learned is that the day began at midnight. And midnight it is the darkest hour during the day. So it lets me know even in my darkest moment, I can still have a new beginning. And that's where he hit me. He said, you know what? You might be going through your darkest time right now, but there could still be a new beginning. And that's when it all came true to me and realized there's something there. And I had to find my purpose. And you say, you know, they say there are two more important dates in a man's or a woman's life. It's the day that they were born, the day that they find out. Where 3 years ago, on January 20th, 2020, that's when I found my purpose. That's when it all came to me and makes sense and realize that I have found my purpose. And ever since then, I have never looked back.
Wow,
Wow.
how powerful is this?
Yeah, it really is. And, Will, as we sit here and talking, it just dawned on me. I really don't, I know you're from Haiti, but I don't know a lot about that background when you were young or what transpired there or how you got to Canada. Is that something you could fill us in on right now?
Oh, absolutely. As a matter of
Okay.
fact, I actually came from the States before I moved to Canada. I left Haiti in my teenage year to be reunited with my mother. I wasn't raised with my mother. My father passed away when I was 3 years old.
Mm.
I had a very rough upbringing, like many kids, many children. But mine was very my upbringing or my childhood took a turn after my grandmother passed away because she was my caregiver. She's the one that nurtured me. She's the one that and wasn't raised with my mother. She was traveling a lot, and when she passed away, that's when my whole world come crashing down, and that's when I had to become a man because I was the only man in the house. We're seven children. I was the middle child, and at 12 years old, I quickly had to step into a role where I have not been prepared for, no one to guide me. So I had to step into a role where I wasn't ready for. So, in other words, I'm stepping into a role now. I'm forsaking another role, which is being a young boy. So now there's a double whammy. I'm forsaking a role where I'm supposed to be in to grow. I'm stepping into a role where I have no idea what am I gonna do. And then not too long after that, I was reunited with my mother. And as a child that was abused, never really have a chance to speak his mind. Will never really have a chance to be his own man. So when I turned 18, it was the time for me to say, you know what? Now I'm a man. Now I'm gonna do what I want when I want, and then that's when it just start going down a slippery slope. Start getting in trouble and then out of a prison, and I come to a crossroad, and I believe we all have this crossroad that we have to come to at some point. And I was at 27 years old, after in and out of prison and I say I have to make a change. I say I cannot get healed from the same environment where I got hurt,
Right.
and I had to make a change, and I didn't know how that was going to happen, but I knew there's got to be something better out there for me. And at 27 years old, I decided to um, I bought a plane ticket. I got into the airport. I called my mother and said, "Hey, I'm moving to Canada." I say I'm going to Canada. She said, "When are you coming back?" I said, "I don't know because I only have one way ticket, and it's been 16 years,
Wow.
and it's probably one of
And
the best decisions that I've made in my life."
and you know what? Your story is very much true to a lot of other um, people that grow up also in the islands where they they're raised by grandparents. A parent, one or two parents leave to start a new life, and grandparents raise them to whatever points they can, and those children are a lot of times very lost, and because of a lot of that, get into troubles. So this must be resonating, I'm sure, with other people that will be watching this, because it's a very sad situation, and I've known it from some other very dear friends who have grown up in that same way, where that's how a lot of the people have come into Canada and the US, is by somebody comes over to start up a new life and then bring their children over afterwards.
And Will, what I'm really curious about is, you had a rough start. You didn't have a father, raised by your grandmother. She passed away. You've been in prison. That might have been a situation where that could have been your life. What was different? What did you hear? What did you feel? Or what made you understand that you wanted, and deserved more?
Yeah.
I know a lot of people, you talk about career criminals, they have the same story you have. How did you step up, overcome, and become?
Uh, I would love to say, I guess it was already. I'm a very spiritual person. I am not religious, and I do believe even the Bible says that um, before I was formed in my mother's womb, that God knew me. And if I could step back at that day that I decided that there's better for me out there, on one hand I was cursing God. I said, how could you be a God? How could be a loving father to allow a child like me at 9 years old to go through this abuse from 9 to 16, sexual, physical, emotional, and then, but when I thought it was over, and I finally find uh, uh, a friend of the family as a man to guide me, to help me into this adulthood, into my manhood, to teach me how to get girls, how to become a man, just to find out, just for that man to turn around and take advantage of me.
Mm.
And so that's when I lost faith in humanity. That's when I lost faith, and I had trust issues. But for me, I would love to say, I have this revelation all of a sudden that I didn't. But I always knew there was something special about me. And here's the reason why I knew that. But by the time I was born to about 3 months, I have been pronounced dead 3 times already. Not once, not twice, 3 times. And when I say pronounced dead, I'm not talking about just, no, I'm talking about my casket being made. So when I heard that story, I said, how could I have so many chances? How many people do I know that got so many chances? I don't. So this stayed in the back of my mind, knowing that I am here because God knew there was something that I need to do in this world. And that no matter what, there's nobody else that could do exactly what I was called to do. Now, they could do something different, but there's only one me. So I knew that I was destined to do something different. So for me, it was just, okay, keep looking, keep searching. Because if I keep looking, if I keep searching, and I knew one day I'm going to find either a way out, I was going to find my purpose, which I did. So it's just at that particular moment, I say, you know what? I'm going to define everyone that told me that I was going to amount to anything, that I was going to be a career criminal, that I was going to be ended up in in prison for the rest of my life or being dead. And I say, if God give me one more chance to get out of this life, I want to make sure that I serve my life as a servant to others. And that's how I've been able to stay not only safe but also to stay positive, to stay disciplined, and to be able to serve others as I wish that I have had when I needed somebody else. So basically, I am becoming what I wish to see in the world.
Uh,
Lovely. You know, the hardest thing is, I think, when you're so young, though, is to be able to keep that positiveness in you, to know that, like being in and out of jail, we know that the jail systems and basically worldwide do not do anything to help change people or to rehabilitate them. So how did you manage to get that even in your own soul, that you weren't eating up all that, what was out there? Instead of, you have to find something deep inside of you.
I w- I think it was I think it was my ego.
well, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Yes, thank God for my ego.
yeah, thank
I,
goodness.
I think it was my ego. I think it was my quest and searching something better in this life because I refuse to believe that life is what I can see, feeling. I know there was always more out there. I just didn't know where to look, um, who to ask. But I just knew at some point that I was going to find it. And so I think it's my faith, my tenacity, my resilience
Love
that
it.
that really lead me into this life that I'm living right now. And I could not ask for a better life because, as I said before, I am one of the most successful men on this planet. And I'm not talking about monetarily. I'm talking about the fact that I found my purpose.
Yeah.
That make me a successful man because I no longer have to chase anyone, any relationship, any status, because I am walking in my purpose. I have found a way to turn my pain into purpose, into passion, into power. That to me is the meaning of success.
I love.
Oh, if people could hear this. That what you just stated, it's not about money. It's about your soul calling you to a special place, and you found that. That's amazing. That's amazing.
And how important it is to go out there and have now being able to help others because you understand where they're coming from. It's such a hard thing when you are at the bottom of the world, do you feel like is almost ready to give up, and you know that there's nobody out there to help you, but now that you have found your way, that you can help others find theirs, and that's huge. And I love what you're doing now. Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. And
Mhm.
it's important. It's important because all the things that I've been through would have been for not. Well, I wouldn't say for nothing because there's me. Um, if nothing else, at least I was able to be saved. I was able to see life for what it is. But more importantly, being able to put my experience, my everything that I've been through in service of others, that's what gives me fulfillment. My purpose was to find it to become a better man that I was born to be. But the fulfillment is to be able to use that as a vehicle to be able to help other men. And to me, that's the ultimate fulfillment in life.
Yeah, when people ask, what do you get from things? To have something like that is, money can't even come close to anything like that, of what it does to your heart, that you can go out there and you can help others that are battling with this. So tell me, how did you start by moving this forward, by being able to get in touch with men that are going through this? And we say, women can even be listening to this because this of what you're talking about, you have, you have so much energy and so much wisdom from all of that. And, the greatest thing that we can all learn is from what we've been through and how much we can teach others from that. So how do you get your purpose out to people so that they can come to you and get this help?
It's funny. That's a great question. I actually didn't start out doing this, what I'm doing. I, I was on my own healing journey. Part of my healing journey, what my therapist told me was to go out and just talk. And I started in a clubhouse. I started talking to people. I started sharing every time that I go to therapy. I used to do it. We used to call therapy recap. I used to every Sunday morning, right before church or after church. I will sit there for about 20 minutes and I'll do a video of what I've learned through therapy, and I was sharing it with people. And through that, I found that there was some type of healing. And as I saw stuff, and I have to say, at the beginning, it was very hard because I was getting a lot of pushback from a lot of men because what I was saying was so true, but it was still taboo. So they feel like if I'm talking now, they feel that they have to talk as well because they don't want to talk. So it was very hurtful. I actually didn't want to continue to do it. But because I know that that was part of my healing, regardless of how people receive it or not, that I was going to show up for myself. So that's how it started. It started just me talking and sharing and being vulnerable, being emotional. And then on the flip side, as I continue to do that, now they keep coming back. They say, well, you know what? Yeah, me too. I've been through this. Me too. That happened to me. And I'm like, okay, there is a need here. So what do I do? Then that's when I became, I did my course and become a mental health coach to be able to help other men. But I didn't start out doing this for others. I'm still not doing it for other people. I'm still doing it for myself because I believe that healing is a journey. It's not a destination. It's a marathon. And as I begin to peel off all the layers of all my wounds, and I realized there's a whole lot more healing that I need to do. So I'm just sharing. I'm just sharing my healing journey. And whoever resonate with it,
Yeah.
fine, great. But if you don't, more power to you. But I do believe every single one of us, under the sound of my voice, have some type of trauma,
Absolutely.
regardless who you are.
Absolutely. Everybody's got something.
Yeah. And Will, I'm curious when you were when these men were listening to you, what do you think it is that keeps men blocked? Is it conditioning? Is it shame? Is it ego? What is in them that makes them feel that they can't be vulnerable or share like you're sharing?
They can't be because they're not allowed to.
Hmm.
Not because they don't want to. We want to. Absolutely. Trust me. We want to, but we are not allowed to. Society doesn't make it safe for us to do that. Now, let me give you an example. And of course, when I was growing up, I couldn't cry. And if I, whew, God forbid, I cried, I would be told, "Well, you want to cry? I'm gonna give you something to cry
Good try
about."
about.
Yeah,
Right.
we've all heard that one.
So I couldn't cry, and again, going back to my childhood, I had to step into this role that I wasn't ready for. So I had to put all my feelings to the side. I had to bottle them up. I had to be strong. I had to be the man in the house now. I had to console everybody. So I didn't have time. Being depressed was a luxury.
Wow.
I didn't have this luxury to be depressed because I have to keep going and I have to be there for everybody else except for the one person that is important, which is me. I couldn't be there for myself because I had to show up for everybody else. So fast forward, as you know, I believe, my first wife, I wasn't being vulnerable at all. I didn't know how to be vulnerable. Even if I did, didn't want to be vulnerable because I was so scared. And my second wife, I said, you know what? Maybe if I was being vulnerable, maybe if I would show a little bit of emotion, maybe my first marriage would have survived. So from the, you know, And without, going through the healing process, without going to therapy, I went right back into another relationship. Now I was being open and transparent and being vulnerable. And what ended up happening? It was weaponized against me.
Ooh.
So after 30 years, no, after 35 years of keeping everything in, finally say, you know what? I'm going to give this emotion things, that vulnerability a chance. Well, it wasn't long lived because I was being told that I was being too emotional. On one hand, I was asked to be emotional,
Yeah.
then I was being too emotional. And and one hand, I was asking to be vulnerable. Then all of a sudden, I was being too vulnerable. So where do I shut down?
Sure,
Like a
because
no-win. Yeah.
yeah, the messages that are coming to you. Well, that's what we do, right? And I say that as we because that's what society does. We all say we want to hear men, men have to start to be, feeling a little bit more vulnerable, tell you how you're feeling and all the rest. And then just what you did of opening up and then you're closed down.
That shame, guilt,
Yeah.
all of it, and it's even worse. I say, you know what? And as I was talking to myself, I say, this is exactly why I didn't want you to open up. This is exactly why I want you to keep everything in. But here's what happened when we do that. Two things happen: we either explode or we implode. How do we explode? Through physical violence. Now, I'm not a type of person that will get into politics, but it is what it is. We only at the first quarter. We're already at 129 mass shooting.
I know. Ugh, terrible.
Now, if not all of it, most of it are done by men. Do you think a man just get up one day, say, you know what, I'm going to start shooting everybody? No, there is an underlying problem. Why do I bring that up? It's because that's what happened when we explode. Now, what happened if, in my case, I never exploded to that degree, but I imploded, which means I create my own disease. Disease. When I implode, chronic disease,
Yeah.
sleep apnea, headache, all those kind of things happen. That's
Sure.
one way I implode. The other way that I implode is when I wanted to take my own life because I didn't want to hurt anybody. I wanted to hurt myself because I felt like people would be better off without me. They'll be better off if I'm no longer there because I felt like I was being a burden to everybody. So two things happen. We either explode or we implode. But neither one of them are good.
No.
What's the alternative? Give us a safe space where we can be vulnerable and let us to feel our emotions and let us be human. We are human beings. Why are you allowed to have emotions? Why are you allowed to be vulnerable, but I'm not? Why is that? And
No.
that's the problem that we have.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Uh, and honestly, I look back, from the time school starts and as we go through things and, we're told to hold things in where, you'll try to share something. Well, I don't want to hear that. There's so many situations that we get into, even with bosses, we're shut down, and so it just builds and builds and builds and builds. And then we get to a moment. And I really love that you brought up the dis-ease because everything we hold in our body, it's our body is at dis-ease with what we're holding in there. And then we get physically sick. And that is a fact. A lot of people don't understand that, but I've seen it happen. I've had it happen to me.
Yeah.
So when we're imploding, we're going to get physically sick from it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the thing about disease, it's only a very small percentage that's come from genetics. Every disease that we have comes from trauma.
Absolutely.
Only a very
Absolutely.
small percentage. So if we understand the root cause of our disease, which is our trauma, then we can go back and figure out when did it happen, where do we feel it in our body, because trauma we can actually feel it in our body. So we have to do the work. And it's easy for us to say we have to do the work. Now the question is, where do we start? How do we do it? And that's the problem. Nobody knows where to start. Nobody know how to do it. And that's when I come and I say, guys, listen, just start talking. Now, just be aware of your surrounding. Because it's one thing, although I'm preaching to be vulnerable, I'm preaching to men to be to express themselves, their emotion. But I'm also saying use your discernment, use your wisdom to know when and where and to whom you can open up, because not everybody is ready to receive you. And be careful also, we're not doing trauma dumping, but that's a whole nother conversation for another time.
So being aware, that is always a key goal that people need to, as they become more mature, being aware of even yourself, your own emotions, and how you're feeling, but also very important of just what you just said, of being aware of what is around you, who is around you, and also being aware of who, are people building you up, and are people knocking you down. The people that are knocking you down, you've got to be aware that it's okay to walk away from those people.
I agree, and I'm glad that you bring that, people that bring, that will bring you down, because you have to be aware of your quote unquote circle. But if you have a circle of people
Yeah.
that don't want to see you win, that always trying to bring you down, always be so judgmental. Breaking news: you do not have a circle; you've got a cage. It's time to get
Absolutely.
out.
Yeah.
It's time to get out and run for your life, because those type of people. Now, mind you, part of it is us attracting those people. So it's one thing to talk about these people, but why I would keep attracting those people, it goes back to our trauma. Our trauma tells us to attract those people. I remember, as I was thinking this morning, and I said, you know what? My first wife was quote unquote submissive. Now that's a can have a wrong connotation to it. Now I'm going to explain. When I say submissive, because I have a mission, because I believe submission, my wife wasn't submitting to me, was submitting to the mission that we have at a family. But as an immature 30-year-old man that was wounded to the core, I found her boring, because she was too submissive, because she was too into the family, to the point where she forgot about herself. So I went from one end of the spectrum, and I got with a narcissistic, controlling,
Yeah.
abusive wife. And I'm like, how can I go from this to that? And come to realize it wasn't her fault. There are two complete different people, come from two different background, run from Canada, the other one from Senegal. So who was the common denominator? It was me. At some point, I had to take full responsibility and accountability to say, hey, big guy, you play a big role in this. So it's not for you to blame everybody else. Look inward. That's when I started doing the work and realized I was attracting those people because of my past wounds. That's when I started working on myself. Rather than paying the victim, I started looking inward and say, where did I go wrong and how can I get it right the next time?
I
Wow.
love that. And just to have that strength in yourself to say to that, I need to look inward and do the work, because so many others, it's, a life of, lashing out to others, and just sort of blaming the world is what is more of the common denominator than the other way around.
Absolutely. And when you do that, all you're do by blaming others, you're victimizing yourself and you're taking away your own power.
Yeah.
When you stand up, when you do your mirror work, when you look at yourself, and like Will, like you say, when you look inside of yourself or just feel around in there, because like you said, you can feel where your energy is stuck. You can feel what it's holding on to. You can feel what you need to release. And your body's brilliant. It'll tell you everything you need to know if you listen. And we never listen. We always, like Glenda, like you said, we lash out at others. And it's really us. We could solve the world right now, you guys. I'm telling you. We could solve the problems. It's crazy, but that's very true. Looking into ourselves is our biggest advantage we have in life, and we don't use it enough.
Well, because it's easier to blame others than it is to take on the responsibility, but people don't realize that we become much more powerful once we take on that responsibility and really speak our truth. Because when we speak our truth, we really start to feel who we are.
Absolutely. I
And
agree.
truth feels different. Truth resonates differently within you too. And when you say you can feel it, Glenda, you truly can feel it inside of your body. And that's how you know you're doing something right, the way it feels.
Well, it's a form of release. It is very therapeutic. It's a form of release because when you're not able to speak your truth or when you're not able to be truthful, if it can feel like a burden. And that's exactly what happened when we are not able to express our feelings or emotion. It's a burden. And that's how we feel that the world is coming crashing down. We have no control. We can't get anything done. So we become powerless. We feel powerless. And anytime a man feel powerless, he's looking at himself no longer as a man, but more so as a
Mhm.
coward. Because our DNA as a man, we're supposed to have it all together. We're supposed to be the strong one, but not knowing it's okay not to feel strong. It's okay not to be okay. It's okay to have a bad day. It's okay to not have it all figured out. But we are not allowing ourselves to do that because of what society expecting from us, because of what our family, our wives, our children are expecting, or our bosses are expecting of us. So therefore, we have to put on this persona. And I say that each and every single one of us walking around with at least 5 different masks that we have to put on so we can show up whenever everybody needs us. But how many times that anytime that we are showing up for everybody else, knowing that we are not showing up for ourselves. Now the question is, who's more important? But you can still show up for yourself and show up for others. But you gotta live with this balance. You got to find the balance. You got to find that middle ground where my rights begin, yours ends. When I don't have to feel uncomfortable just to make you feel comfortable. I don't have to be disloyal to myself in order for me to be loyal to you. And that's when I start taking my life, my health seriously. Because I've learned that I cannot pour from an empty cup. And I'm not even pouring from a full cup. I'm pouring from an overflow. So which means each and every day I gotta make sure that I go back to the source. Whatever the source looks like for you. Mine is God in the gym. Hey, you find me praying, and then boom, 5:30, I'm at the gym. That's my source. Whatever your source is for you, whatever works for you, as long as it's helping towards bringing peace, towards bringing unity, towards bringing healing, and that's all we need in this world: healing, unity, and peace.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful to hear that. And I'm curious, Will, are you starting to absorb what you're talking about and accept it? Or are you still feeling a little bit of pushback or questioning or maybe being called, well, that's not how real men are?
No, anything that's real cannot be threatened. Let me repeat that. Anything that's real and authentic cannot be threatened. And I'm gonna tell you why. Because everything that I've ever talked about, something that I've experienced. So you cannot tell me how I should feel when I was the one going through that. How dare you tell me how I should feel? How dare you tell me, oh no, real men don't go through. What is the definition of a real man? And I think it's been diluted. It's been taken out of context what a real man's supposed to be like. Well, a real man, in my book, is someone that can be vulnerable and still be a man, that can still be emotional, can still be a man, that can still operate into his femininity and still be a man. And to me, that's a real man. Not just because you can provide. Yes, that's part of it. Not just because you've got it all together when it comes to women and when it comes to your career. That's all great. But at the end of the day, that's not who you are. A real man is coming back to his essence, to his true identity, and still be able to hold himself under the light and see for himself who he really is. That's when I wrote this book, the ebook, the 3 tips for men coping with trauma. And the first thing that I had to do, and everything that I have talked about and teach men, all those are things that I have applied myself just to see exactly how I respond to that. And the first thing that I had to do is awareness. I had to be aware of who I am. Not what somebody else told me, not the label that they put on me, not the inability of someone else not able to do something to project that on me. So I had to sit with myself, look at myself in the mirror and say, hey, what do you want in this life? Who are you? And that was a very hard thing that I had to do because for 40 years I was living a lie. And when I said I was living a lie, people say, well, how could you do that? But of course, I didn't know who I was. So therefore, whoever I would tell Nicole, whoever I would tell Glenda I am, now you will treat me based on what I told you. And now all of a sudden I'm mad because you're not treating me right. But it is not your fault because I've told you who I was, but I didn't know so I had to go back to my childhood and make peace with myself and forgive myself. And the second thing that I have to do is acceptance. I had to accept the fact that, hey, molestation happened, sexual abuse happened, incarceration happened, divorces happened, failed business happened. I had to accept the fact that those are the things in the past. There's nothing I can do about it. And that was very hard for me to accept as a man with my ego getting away. How could you not get this right? How could you mess it up? But it's okay. And the last thing that I had to do, which is probably one of the hardest things, was to take action. Be aware of who I am, accept who I am, and taking action, which is something that I'm doing each and every day. I'm taking action towards become a better version of myself.
It's really incredible because, how could you have learned all these things when you were never taught? As a child, as an infant, we're hopefully being parented. And I say hopefully because I think as time is going on, a lot of people are changing their parenting skills and they're starting to grow more. But let's face it, you're talking 40, 50 years ago, very different parenting skills than where we are now. Now there's a lot more things, even though there's still a lot of horrific parents that are out there. But, it's how could you have known better? You were sort of a young child bringing up yourself, watching what was going around you, and we take lead from what we see. So it's not because you had the education, you had the knowledge, you were never given it. And that's the sad part of it all. But and at the same point too, when you're talking about like just as men, let's stand tall and let's stand strong as people. We're not talking just even men and women, because women in some ways have been given a lot of abilities, options, and things where they came out. But as people, why is it that that people feel better when they're downplaying others instead of being able to upplay someone? What's the big deal if we can help somebody else stand in their power and stand there and say bravo on what they've done for themselves, even though it maybe has no reflection on us whatsoever? The whole idea in me, the way I see life, is we're supposed to be there for each other, to support each other, to love each other, even when you're all falling down. And no matter what, so that if someone is falling down, you help to support them, to bring them up, not to push them down further.
Oh, yeah, that was a great point. And then one thing that I've learned is that be careful who you stepping over on your way up.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
those other might be the same people that you meet on your way down. Now, I want to go back to the point that you talk about parents. But a few days ago, I posted something. I said, heal before having children, so your children don't have to heal from having you as a parent.
Ooh,
Oh, wow.
ouch.
Huge. That's huge.
And oh my God, listen, I've got flack from this particular woman. How could you say? I said, listen, if you already have children, the only thing you can do now is do your best. And the reason why I was able to go back and forgive my mother, I kept thinking, maybe she did the best that she could. I said, how could she give me something that she didn't have? And I said, now as a parent myself, knowing better now, I should do better. So now I can parent my children differently. Even that, I am perfectly imperfect. I will still be a product under construction.
Yeah,
I was still gonna have to keep improving myself each and every day, because as I
absolutely.
go in life, in different stages of my life, and in different stages of my children's life, it's gonna require different type of parenting. So I cannot get stuck in my old ways of parenting my children when they were 5. Now they're becoming 12, 13, 14. I can't still parent them the same way. Now I have to adjust. I had to adapt. And a lot of us as parents, there's only one way to parent. And unfortunately, parenting doesn't come with a manual. We do the best that we can. That's why I decided to get better myself. And as I told my children, I said, my children, you are not the my to a certain extent, I am the first priority. Because if I'm not doing well, then how can I show up for my children? Now, my children will eat before I eat. But when it comes with my emotional health, I got to put myself first,
Absolutely.
because that's the only way I'm going to be able to show up for my children. So my children won't have to heal from having me as a father.
And that's so important. And people, that's something that I hope that you'll do continue on in that journey, because I see it. I now have adult children and saw, like healing from my own parents was realizing they did the best that they could do. And that's how I could deal with that. And realizing even when I made a mistake as a parent, I went back because I recognized, and there's a big, huge word, is to recognize when I did something wrong, I would go back and apologize to my children so they understood, A, I'm human, and mom wasn't right for what she did, so they could understand and then turn around and adapt that situation to what was right. And I think those are some big changes that people need to realize, that we are all human. And if our children can recognize that fact, because the whole thing in life is really dangerous when we put people on pedestals.
Hmm.
When we put them up on pedestals, we don't really see them with who they are. So the idea is that having great relationships is we're all on the same level. Some learn a little bit more or have been trained to do other things, but we can all teach each other. But to be putting others on pedestals and some being looking up at others and looking down, that's not a healthy way of living.
Very true. One thing when you talk about children, though, that I have come to learn on my journey with mine is I always just saw them as my kids, maybe a reflection of me, but they're not. They're such unique individual little human beings. And
Hmm.
even when they're 1 or 2, you can hurt their feelings so badly by something you say. Or I've seen people sit them at the kids' table. I have seen in my own family, like of a little niece that says something, I've seen them like tap her mouth. Well, what does that do when they're older? You're gonna keep them from speaking their truth, because like Will talks about, you're going to have something embedded in you that you're going to have to go find. So I think we truly have to realize that, how we parent, we need to look at and change. And one of the things with me, when I parented my kids, I was hurt. I didn't even know it. So that's a great thing to think about, Will, when you say that. I'm just wondering if people got so upset with you because that's a truth and a reality they didn't want to admit. I have to look back and admit that had I known different, I would have done different, but I didn't at the time. But
Well,
not everything was that perfect. I showed them I have 2 girls, so I was the role model for the females. I didn't do that great because I stayed with the man that I wouldn't want my girls to be with.
mm,
That was a
I,
tough one. That was a tough one, Will.
right, right. And I think what happened with this lady, I think she was triggered. I think she looked at herself as probably the best mother. Her in her eyes, she could be the best mother she could be, but
Yeah.
there's always no one is perfect. So I think it's kind of revealed some of the things. So basically, what I think I did, I held a mirror in front of her and let her look at herself, and then she come to a conclusion. So it's not on me; it's on her. But I was gracious enough to to empathize with her to understand where she's coming from, because she's sitting in a place of hurt. She has not healed from some of the wounds that are still open. And now, as we said, she's bleeding on me, but I didn't cut her.
Yes.
So that's why it's important to heal, because now we're going to start bleeding on people who didn't cut it. Now, as a person that's in the process of healing, now I didn't retaliate because I understand it has nothing to do with me. It's not on me, it's on her. So I'm going to let her deal with her own issue as I'm dealing with mine.
And how do you suggest to people to start their healing journey?
Great question. You got to start where you are. What is it in your life that you don't like? Examine your life. What is it in your life that you don't like? So what you have to be able. Back in Florida, I used to work for a grocery store called Publix, and every 3 months we had to do what we call what's the word? Inventory. Now it was important to me because as a manager, my bonus, would be based on our performance. Now that's a grocery store. We had to do every 3 months. Now, truthfully, how many of us, myself included, have taken the time to do an evaluation in our lives? Never mind every 3 months, every year.
Yeah.
To look at the people that are around us, the job that we are doing, the environment that we're in, to say, you know what, that I don't want this anymore. And that's where it starts. So what you don't like, you start making that change. So start with where you are. What is it in your life that you don't like? Where in your life that you've been lying to yourself? Never mind that you've lied to people. I think the greatest lie is not the lie that we tell to people. It's the lie that we tell to ourselves.
It's true.
Look around you. Are you being fulfilled? Have you found your purpose? Start there. You don't have to pay some guru. If you can, by all means, go ahead. But I think you'll be better served is to start to realize, because it doesn't really matter what I tell you. That's why I never tell nobody what to do. I only share with them what I've done. And if that works for you, fine. My only goal is to hold a mirror in front of you. Let me know what you see, and I can only work from there. It is irrelevant for me to tell you who you are or what I see. It doesn't really matter. But until you see it, until you can recognize it, and then I would only use based on what you tell me, then that's when I start working with you, because it's a team effort.
And I've noted, people have to have healing on their timeline. Don't you think? They truly, you can't help somebody unless they're receptive and unless they're ready. It's like talking to a door.
Yep. Healing is just like the same as grieving. Nobody can tell you how long it's going to take for you to heal. Nobody's going to need to tell you how long it's going to take for you to grieve. It takes as long as it takes. But continue to do the work. Don't lie to yourself. Just be truthful, be honest, and have some accountability partners. That is very important. That is key. We talk about this in business, but in our personal lives, do we have accountability partner? Somebody that would tell us not what we want to hear, but what we need to hear, with love and compassion. Because we can be truthful without being brutal. And a lot of people say, well, can I be brutally honest now? Get away from me. I've had enough brutality in my life. I don't need another person to be brutal. Just be honest with me. Because not every truth needs to be said at the time. Let's just hypothetically, Nicole, that you wear this beautiful dress. In your mind, it is a beautiful dress. You come to me and say, what do you think about this dress? Now, I'm going to tell you the truth. But I don't have to say, oh, my God, that's an ugly dress. What I could say is, I see you in a blue dress. It looks better. But you know what? It's still a nice dress. Now, there's some honesty without being brutal and without lying to you. So there are ways. Well, guess what? That's something that we each have to learn how to do. And that takes time.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point.
Absolutely. Kindness over everything is really the key point. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, since that's part of my job, is to say that we're at the end of our hour, and this went way too fast.
Ooh, it did.
And Will, wow. Well, kudos to you on everything that you have accomplished and are accomplishing. And I would love for you to come back one day and we can continue on this, because I believe this is something that needs to be out there more and more for people. As I said, it's not just for men, it's for women too. Everybody needs their own healing and being honest with them, with their own selves as well.
I'm glad you mentioned with women too, but don't forget, women have fathers, they have husbands, they have sons. So yeah, absolutely, you're right. It's for women because here's the crazy thing. I have more women that have contacted me than men. You know why? Because they understand that no men are going to contact me directly. So I'm working with men through their women. Oh yes, I know you could. Can you speak to my husband? Can you speak to my son? Can you speak to my brother? What by whatever way, whatever means that I have to get to those
Yeah,
men,
it
I'm
doesn't
gonna
matter.
get through them. Absolutely.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. And I understand. Look, I have a son as well. So, having, as a woman, being the sole caregiver of my child was always about, bringing their strength up, but also making sure that they're heard. And I think that's really, of today's one of the main things that I pulled out of it, anyways, is being able to listen and to hear what others are saying, and giving them that respect. And Will, before we go, can you give us a golden little nuggets that you can leave us with today?
Whew, there's so many. If there's one thing that I could say, is that life as we know it, we cannot get out of this life alive. And a lot of us wants to go to heaven, but a lot of us don't want to die. All of us wants to go to heaven, but most of us don't want to die. So what am I saying is everything in this life requires sacrifice. You can pay the sacrifice, you can pay it with regrets or with whatever you decide that the price is going to be. But there is a price for everything. Knowing that you matter, you valued, you are worth it, and you don't need outside validation to tell you how great you are. Everything else that you want for somebody to do for you or to say it to yourself. It is if it is love that you're looking for, love yourself. If it's respect that you're looking for, respect yourself. If it's boundary that you want people to respect your boundary, well, start respecting your own boundary. So whatever it is that you're looking for, know that you were born with all the tools that you need to navigate through this life. Everything else that somebody else gonna say or do for you or extra, they are bonus. You don't need them, although it is welcome. But know that you have every piece of tools that you need to navigate through this life. You don't need extra tools. Just learn how to use the tools that you have already. And if you don't know how to do it, then ask someone that can help you to use those tools. But you don't need to acquire more tools. You're all enough.
I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. Absolutely. Nicole, any last moments, thoughts?
Well, the minute I started learning about Will and talking to him, you can just feel resonance and connection. And that's how I felt with him. And when he talked about his two ex-wives, one was one way, one was the complete other, and looking at yourself. And what happens is when you look at yourself, you are responsible for the people who come towards you or you befriend or who you're hanging out with. It's all because of what's going on inside of you. And when we talk about the healing journey, when you heal yourself, you're actually the ripple that heals others. And you're going to start to notice different people coming towards you. Some just go organically away, and then the others come organically in. And it's a very peaceful, humbling process. And when I first started talking to Will, he's the kind of person I want in my life. So, Will, I'm so excited you agreed to come on. Thank you so much. Your wisdom knows no bounds.
Thank you very much for joining us today. And we will put Will's contact information below. So if anybody is looking to contact him, and I highly suggest that you do, if at any points any of these things have triggered you or have you've connected with him on certain levels, don't hesitate, reach out. He's a beautiful soul, and I really think that he has a lot to give for everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Be well.